Hey guys, this is Tiki, the founder of Aura Estelle. Today I wanted to talk about something very important to you and I, something that needs to be addressed, the Tomoe River paper, aka TRP. As many of you know, the 2025 TRP quality was a huge disaster and it was a big disappointment to all of us. It had bleed through on a lot of inks and the surface of the paper just felt a lot rougher than it should be. It simply just wasn't the premium TRP quality that all of us fell in love with. In this video, we'll be talking about what actually happened to the 2025 TRP and also doing a close comparison of the TRP to other paper alternatives. And most importantly, we're going to reveal our paper choice for our 2026 planner lineup and a big surprise at the end. So ever since we addressed this issue in January, we've been continuously testing different batches of paper from TRP and other alternatives. And the results were very disappointing. None of them really came close to what we were looking for, including the alternatives, until very recently we tested the newest batch of TRP in May. And this is also why it took us a lot longer to introduce our 2026 planner lineup. We didn't want to move forward until we find out exactly what went wrong. We had several conversations for months with this industry insider who was actually at the Sensen factory figuring out what the problem was. And the key here was the testing method they used, which is the ink drying speed method. In summary, we learned that for the 2025 TRP batch, it was on the lower end of that qualification spectrum. And right now, Sensen is working really hard to maintain this key indicator to stay on the higher end of that drying speed spectrum. And this in turn will bring back its premium quality. Of course, we didn't just take their words for it. We ran an intensive paper test of all kinds of Japanese papers side by side. We tested 8 different batches of TRP and 5 different commonly used Japanese papers for the past few months. So now we've narrowed them down to the top 5, and we wanted to show you our testing process and its results. We looked at everything from drying speed, ghosting, bleed through, smoothness, thickness of the paper, to even how different types of pens reacted to these paper. So here's the pen test, and I'm going to quickly go over the papers that we are testing, as well as the different pens that we are using for this pen test. So starting with paper sample A, this one I actually directly cut out from the 2025 TRP planner. This is the batch with the quality issue. And then we have paper sample B and C, which are 2 new TRP samples from 2 new TRP batches. And then we have paper sample D, which is a non-TRP paper sample, but also in the 52 GSM. And then we have 2 non-TRP paper samples in the heavier weight group. These 2 are both 75 GSM. So here are the pen that I used in this pen test. These are what I personally think is the most commonly used or most popular pens for TRP planners. So starting with some gel pens, I have the Muji 0.7 gel pen in black, and I have the Micron PN. This is a felt tip pen. And then I have a couple of highlighters, mite liners in 2 bold colors, and then this Tomoe brush highlighter in this dark brown color. And then I also included 2 brush pens. This is the Finoski black brush pen that's most popular. And then I have this pink brush pen. I think it's just called the Sign pen. Yeah, and then I also included a couple of fountain pens in different colors and different types of inks. So I am going to start with the thicker group. This is the 2 non-TRP 75 GSM papers. So these 2 perform really well in color display, smoothness, as well as no bleed through. If you flip to the back, for all of the pens, this is just a little dirt. For all of the pens, there's no bleed through. This one may be a little bit more ghosting than the other one. Yeah, there's no bleed through, just a little bit of ghosting for both. We did not go with the 75 GSM for our main planner paper, and the reason is because, of course, the thickness of the paper. For a normal daily planner, we're talking 500 plus pages, and if we use the 75 GSM, we're talking about a very a much thicker planner to work with. So for that reason, we did not go with the 75 GSM for our main planner paper. And if you're familiar with the 52 GSM TRP paper, you would know that when these thin papers are in a stack, when you're writing on a stack surface, it does feel a little bit more smooth and absorbent, whereas the 75 GSM is thicker in nature. So it kind of gives you a little bit of a bounce back sensation when you're writing really fast. So that is another reason why we didn't go with the 75 GSM. And now coming down to the 72 GSM group, again, we have 4 samples here. We have the first one is the bad one from 2025 batch. This is the quality issue TRP, and then we have 2 new TRP samples from the newer batches, and then we have 1 non-TRP sample, all in the 52 GSM thickness. Okay, let's flip them all over to see, to start with bleed through and ghosting. Okay, now this is little dirt that's already on the paper, is not a bleed through. And as you can see, the 2025 quality issue batch is the one that's bleeding through the most. It's very obvious, especially on the end of the strokes. This one is a special brush pen that I'll explain later. And on the other 3, they all pretty much held up really, really well. You can see the non-TRP paper color is a little bit different than the TRP. I don't think that's a major issue. So as you can see, there's no bleed through, definitely still some ghosting. And these 3 dots over here are just 3 dirts that's originally on the paper, is not a bleed through. So is this one. There's a little bit of bleed through on this brush pen, and I'll explain that later. And so is this one, very well, and a little bit of bleed through on the last brush pen again. I personally think there's a really good method to test out the bleed through, which is using a highlighter. Any highlighter would do with a flat head. So what happens is if you do a stroke and at the end of it, there's more of an ink puddle to test. And like this one, you can see on the batch paper, you can see the bleed through very obviously on the end of each stroke. And that's not the case with the rest. Very clean. And in terms of ghosting, I think I'm just going to turn it this way so it's the same lighting for all 3. You can probably see like the non-TRP paper is a little bit more ghosting through than the other 2. Just slightly though, it's not a major issue. Now this pink brush pen is one that's, I think, the least paper friendly, especially on these thinner papers. I use this one just to show you how much ink the paper is absorbing and how much difference there is in terms of bleed through. So this is how it looks with the 2025 batch. And then on the newer TRP, this is where I did that one. And this one, you can see a little bit more bleed through on the dots, but it's pretty much holding it really well already. And so is the non-TRP one. A little bit of bleed through, but still holding up really well. And again, this is a very extreme pen to be used on 52 GSM papers, and I don't recommend it just for paper testing. Now I want to talk about the smoothness of these paper. It's something that I noticed right away when I was writing in 2 of them separately. And I do think that the TRP is a little bit more smooth than the non-TRP 52 GSM. While it's really hard to showcase that writing feeling, I do think that I found a way to show you guys what I mean. If you look at, especially on brush pens, at the curves, you can see there's a little bit more fuzzy edges, kind of toothy looking edges. And if you look at the TRP, it is more smooth on all of the edges. And also again on the black brush pen. And I think the reason that this is happening is because the TRP surface is smoother, so it's allowing the ink to float on top and dry at its full opacity, which is also why the color is a little bit different in terms of display. I personally think the TRP is a little bit fuller and bolder for the color display. And lastly, there's one more thing that I noticed with the non-TRP paper, which is its performance with gel pens. I personally love gel pens. I have so many of them, and this one that I use today is the Muji 0.7 millimeter black gel pen. This is one of my favorite. It gives a very bold black stroke, and I really like that look. What I noticed is that with the non-TRP paper for this gel pen, you can see that it's seeing through a little bit for the end of the strokes. So I'm gonna write a longer sentence just to test this part out a little bit more. Okay, with the bigger paragraph, I think you can see a little bit more of the difference. At every dot and at the end of the stroke, there's a little bit more see-through over here. And with the TRP, you don't really see that. You can definitely see more of the black ink at the end of the strokes for this non-TRP paper, like here, and versus the new TRP. So again, that is something I've noticed with my gel pens. So that's it for the paper comparison test, and right now I'm going to insert a summary table. First of all of these papers that we tested are premium top quality Japanese papers, especially compared to a lot of the other papers we've tried in the past few months. At this point, our team has become super sensitive, if not overly sensitive, about the tiniest differences in drying time, texture, and just overall performances of these paper. Even paper produced on the same day. Let's say these two have the same production date. It's batch A and batch B. I could still spot the tiniest differences between the two. After carefully considering all of the testing results, we still believe that the new batch of Tomoe River paper is still the best fit for our planners. And that is why we're sticking with TRP for 2026. And just to be extra careful, we've actually secured the exact batch we've tested for our production exclusively. And for the big surprise, very soon you'll be able to order these new batch of TRP paper samples from our website only at the cost of a stamp postage. And this way you'll be able to test these papers yourselves before committing to your 2026 planners. That's it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and we'll be revealing our 2026 planner lineup very soon. Stay tuned.